Thank you very much. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to take part in this panel. I think that when it comes to right-based approach, we can all learn a lot from each other, and I certainly have learned this morning by the report and discussions before, especially when operating in different fields. My organization, Eastern Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Project, is a secretariat of two important networks. One is the Pan-African Human Rights Defenders Network, and the other one is the Eastern Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Network, with over 77 active human rights communities having a membership, and Pan-Africa one having different hubs in the continent, from Johannesburg to Douala to Lomé and to Tunisia and Kampala. Those are the different sub-regional networks to which we act as a secretariat. Mainly we do three interventions. One is protection, both preventive and reactive protection for human rights defenders when they are at risk. And also we capacitate and deploy tools of protection, the second pillar of our interventions: security trainings, digital security map, security protocols, psychosocial support, and mechanism trainings like this mechanism to understand and appreciate and demand rights. And the third part of our intervention focus in bringing those voices and raising the profile and the voices of human rights defenders, particularly those who are at the margins. So South Sudanese activists you may find in Geneva or at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to raise active voice about ongoing in her country. And also we do advocacy in terms of launching reports, assessing the way and environment within which human rights work is being taken place. The title of this talk intrigued me: Leave No One Behind. That was the title which was given to me to discuss Leave No One Behind. And I think it's a crucial element of the right-based approach. You have to start by asking the question, who has been left behind? If rights are universal, indivisible, and inalienable, then no one should be left behind. That's the logic. Either you're a refugee, or you are a mother in a Wow, or you are a mother in Mogadishu, or in Mali. You should not be left behind, because rights to health is very essential. But still, we have people who have been left behind, even in Norway, as one of the participants today have mentioned. So what's the right-based approach to protection of human rights defenders? That's, I think, the point I'll be starting. Let me give a few points of what right-based approach means in the context of protection of human rights defenders. We focus on the process, not just the outcome. Our objective is to enable and build the capacity of human rights defenders so that they can define their own objectives and outcomes. Number two, our emphasis on realizing rights on the ground, on making that connection between the institutional frameworks and the realities on the ground. Thirdly, we empower individuals and groups to claim their rights, not position themselves as only victims or just to become the object of intervention. And right from here, I'm going to Mogadishu to facilitate our flagship program called Claiming Spaces, imparting tactical tools for human rights defenders at risk in that country. Finally, we focus on the structural causes of problem, on improving the framework at the same time as empowering human rights defenders, including women human rights defenders. Who is left behind then? Among the human rights community. In our sub-region, we identified 6 groups because of outdated cultural practice and norms and laws left behind by the colonial powers, but still sustained by successor government in the continent, by greed of Western-based corporations and local government in moving to extractive industries without recourse to environmental assessment and impact on indigenous people who live in those lands, and because of armed conflict and because of, again, elections, which has now come up as a major impediment of protection of human rights activists. So namely, those 6 are people and activists, brave activists. Frank Mugisha was telling me when I was coming this side, he was also in this circle of speech, I think 1 year back. Activists defending the rights of LGBTI people, gay, lesbian, transgender, intersex, and queer people. They are people who have been left behind. I intervene, my organization, as a protectors of those groups. We intervene, a Pepe, a prominent activist, being denied, rightly invited, UN8 conference in Kampala, and beaten by the police and arrested, simply because they are participants of that important conference, which talks about their health. The second group is women human rights defenders. 7 minutes? Okay. The second group is women human rights defenders who toil to stand up for the rights of others. And the third group is journalists working to end corruption, high-level corruption, and ending impunity, particularly cases related to the ICC. And the fourth group is activists working in a situation of armed conflict. Yesterday at the seminar, I have asked the audience to observe 1 minute stand for brave journalists who put their lives on the line, and many of them have died. And then those who monitor now elections. Elections become now, as you see in Burundi, if you have seen in Ethiopia, if you have seen in Sudan, and now as you are witnessing in Uganda, elections become now, before and during and after elections, communities who defend the right to protest particularly have been under attack. So those are the groups which we identified. So I have to just contest myself and just move on some landmark resolutions and evolutions which have taken place in the continent. In African continent, yes. In African continent now, we disabuse the notion that out of Africa, there's only abuse. There are hubs, there are progressive legislations and resolutions which African Commission on Human and People's Rights have adopted, including right to equality in its sittings in Angola, and important frameworks within which a protection, right-based protection, can take place. And I think a number of activists now are picking up on that and demanding a kind of inclusion rather than exclusion. Finally, I want to put only one out there of linkage of collectively tackling the perceptions. As indigenous activist from Peru, which I was there in Peru, and I really witnessed it firsthand how activists are moving, we have to now attack the perceptions of the communities to how they can empower themselves and demand justice and demand health, right to health, and move to that. I thank you very much. I think during the conversations, I'll be interacting with you. Thank you.